1993 F-150 5.8 liter. Notice some coolant under the truck. Right there. In the bottom of that water pump. And that hole right in the center of the picture right there. Coolant started leaking out of there, and that's where they leak at the bottom of most water pumps, somewhere like that. And you get a leak there and your seals are gone, so I'm gonna have to replace that water pump. Wouldn't you know it? I mean, I just rebuilt this thing here, but I didn't replace that during the rebuild, so I'm also going to replace this radiator hose right here on these trucks. So there's the front of the truck. On the passenger side of the radiator, right there, that is your valve, and you back that out. I've got a piece of tubing run off of it, and it always leaks out of that valve, so I always try with the tubing, but really don't have a whole lot of good luck. So you'll just reach up here, turn that counterclockwise, and of course it just leaks when you don't want it to. So, you know, try to use the hose, and not really doing it. So here we go. I'm just going to be catching that. So that's how you do that. Drain it there and take the top radiator cap off. First thing we got to do, you got to take your hoses off here for your throttle body. Take this belt off right here, and you'll do that, and that will slack up your belt tensioner. You can see your belt moving there. Push that out of the way, and you just take your belt, then get all this stuff out of here. The next thing we'll have to do is we'll take the fan off, and it looks like there's a stud right here, which very conveniently, this bracket that holds your air conditioner, compressor, power steering pump, that's going to have to be moved out of the way to pull that pump off. And then also we will have to take the heater hose connections off. Get your fan unbolted and just kind of wiggle it off. Don't tear your radiator up. You're just kind of wiggling it back and forth, pulling it towards the radiator. I'm just going to set that right in the fan shroud. Then take my pulley off of here. There again, just wiggle it off. It shouldn't be too terrible. All right, now I got you around the other side of the truck here, so you can maybe see a little bit of what I'm doing here. I've got to get those heater hoses out of the way there. So I'm gonna take this, slide this clamp up here out of my way. One bolt out, and it looks like they got every size bolt ever made by mankind in there. Well, I would suggest the day before you do this, go ahead and spray everything down with penetrating oil. Some of these bolts were taken out back when I redid this. Some of them weren't. So anyway, Probably gonna be getting my torch in here and heating some stuff up. And don't burn wires. You don't want to set your truck on fire. Just warm that up a little bit. See if it'll expand out enough to do any good. Give it a second. Let's see if the back side of this bolt's turning. I think it's turning. All right. So just take your time with it. That was pretty rusty, and I will be cleaning these up on a wire brush and putting little never sees on them and torquing them back down appropriately. So we got these out all the way across here. Got that one out. It goes back to your block. And then on the other side of this compressor, you'll have another one right there that you'll need to take out. So it's going to be right back in there between those two. Okay. So that one is also a 9/16. And there again, glad I put never sees on that. There's two. So now we got one more somewhere. You may be able to see that. Right there. Glad I put never sees on it. And also that bolt there, when I got those out, and you got to be real careful because these bolts corroded. If you went back and watched my other videos, and they go through this aluminum frame here that holds your AC compressor and your power steering pump. They'll corrode and kind of like they weld themselves together between the aluminum and this. So just back and forth and heat it up. You have to get your wires out of the way, shove tinfoil in there, whatever, but just take your time. You don't want to snap them off. But what I did is I put never sees when I got done working on this, is I cleaned these bolts up with a wire brush on a bench grinder, and I coated the entire length of the bolt so that I wouldn't have them sticking to this aluminum frame on this portion of the bolt, because they were a bear to get out way back when. And I'm going to go ahead and unplug ever so carefully my AC clutch, if I can do it without breaking the clip. It's cold outside right now, so I really don't want to start breaking plastic clips. Just got one clip on one side of it. So I'll move that back out of the way. You'll go broke trying to buy those clips. That stud is going to be 5/8. Gosh. So I'm going to heat that up. That is very tight. This is why I didn't mess with this way back when. Block's a big heat sink, so it's going to take a while. That ain't moving, that's just bending the freaking bolt. Spray some more penetrating oil on it. Maybe it'll suck it up in there, I don't know. I doubt it. Let that set for a while, I'll heat it up, work on it back and forth. This ain't like it is in the movies, real time. This stuff takes forever. If to break that off, that goes right into the block. So I don't want to have to pull the freaking motor because I was stupid enough to break a stud off in the block. It's not in the head. So the head ends right there, so that'll be straight into the block. Oh, after much consternation and waiting and heating and beating. And maybe I got lucky here. Sometimes I just think the old air impacts, they beat a little bit slower speed and they seem to work sometimes and the electric ones won't. Of course, this one's tougher than that little 1/4-inch drive thing. They make these things so tough these days that they'll break bolts. I see it at work where they keep making these battery tools tougher and tougher, and all of a sudden guys are breaking stuff. Well, so you pull it out and you look at it and say, well, I don't see metal shavings on it, so that's a good thing. But you see how this stuff, it corrodes up. So I'm going to put Never Sees on the entire length of this stud when I put it back. Antifreeze is poison. You need to catch it. The bottom radiator hose will be full of antifreeze even though you've drained the radiator. It's sweet, so kids and dogs will get in it and drink it. And it's an emergency if that happens, because it can put crystals in their kidneys and shut their kidneys down, as I understand. So anyway, we're going to take this radiator hose here off. Kind of got it off partially. So if you're not replacing your pump, you're going to have to be real careful. I'm replacing the pump, so I don't care if I scratch it or whatever. So I'm just taking this off now to get it out of my way. So there, we've got that off. Come on. Get you in here where you can see what I'm fighting over here. Okay, and there's the heater hose from the thermostat. let go. There we go. So, now, not sure. Anyway, got that out. This thing sits, so this is the top of it. So actually, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts that go onto this. And then you've got the back plate. These are just bolted on. So I'll take that apart and we'll explain how these pumps work. So the way these will work is this centrifugal force slings water out. So the center of the impeller is always the inlet. Unless you're talking about like a Tesla turbine or something weird like that. But anyway, the water comes in behind this. So you may be able to kind of see right in there. If I shine the flashlight, you can kind of see where it comes in behind that impeller. And then this spins this way, slings water out against the edge, and it goes up and it goes out to wherever it goes. So what happens is these things have seals. Like they'll have seal right down inside behind there. If that seal starts leaking, you'll have a couple of holes here that water will start coming out of, and that lets you know you're getting a bad seal. So I don't know if they do it that way to keep it off the belts or what, but generally it's going to leak out of here, and that's the problem on this one. So let's look at the new one. Well, looks like it's going to fit. And there we are. So you can see this is nothing's torqued on here. So I'll take this thing and throw some paint on there. So I don't know if this is a knockoff part or not, but it's 6U2J-8501-PB. Of course, nothing but the best, made in Mexico. The truck was made in Canada, by the way. So the Ford book says use their Ford sealant. It's a 1993 shop manual I have. So I'm going to use black RTV. They said both sides of the gasket. So you got this, you got the cover plate, you got another gasket. And then the torque specs are 15 to 21 foot-pounds for the attaching bolts for the water pump. And then they're 39 to 53 foot-pounds for the bolts that attach the bracket for the air conditioner, compressor, stuff like that. You're not putting a whole bunch on there, it's just enough to make it black. You don't want this stuff squeezing out, getting into your coolant system and plugging up stuff on there. So basically it's just a real fine coat on here, a real thin coat. And then we'll take position our gasket, which makes it really convenient. And then we'll do our gasket, we'll put our plate on, we'll do our other gasket, and then we'll get ready to go to the truck. Go ahead and finish this thing up. Not putting very much on here, I'm just doing it around this gasket. I made sure that I got everything nice and clean on the truck. The aluminum down there the gasket was stuck to it really good and very hard, so ended up using razor blades, scrapers, and sanded it off with a little thing. Get that all cleaned up good, and then I took and cleaned it off with carburetor cleaner after that, or brake cleaner or whatever. Got all the grease off of it. So you can see I'm not putting very much on here, and this is really going to be stuck hard. I hope I never have to take this off again. But it is what it is. That's how they say do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get us a bolt ready here, and see I coated those with never see, so they shouldn't stick. If I have to do this again, at least I'll get them off. Alright, got that one started. Alright, so they say, you know, finger tight till this stuff squishes out, so. And then leave it for an hour before you torque it. There's one in every family, I guess. All right. So now I'll go ahead and put the clean the radiator hose connector on this off good, and then I'll put that bottom radiator hose on, and then we'll just wait for this stuff to give it an hour before we torque it. There's two reasons why I replaced this radiator hose. One, it's kind of soft, but the second one, you see how that's bulging? It's a good bit larger than the hose that's going back on it, and I figured it was only a matter of time until this thing decided to spring a leak. So we're down there at the bottom of the radiator on the driver's side. So you'll put your hose on there and you'll grab that pipe and you'll just kind of wiggle it back and forth, just pulling up and down with force going towards the front of the radiator, just opposite of what you did when you took it off. And then you want it to go all the way up, of course, and seat against the radiator, and then make sure your bolt on this thing is easy to get to. Now that's done. So I got all my hoses put together. So the next step is we'll wait a little while longer. We'll torque all this stuff down here, and then tomorrow I will put the coolant back in there. And so now we'll torque this to 20. And then tomorrow morning, I'll come back out here and I'm going to double check this torque again before I go any further. Because sometimes you wait a while, things kind of relax with gaskets and stuff. This is how the belt will go back on there. Water pump, pulley, crank, your air compressor for your smog stuff, belt tensioner, alternator, idler pulley, air conditioner, power steering, looking at it from the front of the truck like this. So we want to try to keep grease off all this stuff. I cleaned my gloves off again. Release. So So on these belts here, make sure it's actually going in all the way, and the belt is centered between the inside and outside, and it's not setting up on one of those. So anyway, you can see how that goes. Maybe it's pretty hard to see really. So it wraps around the outside of those two, goes across under your idler, over your alternator, around your tensioner, down there through your air pump pulley, wraps around your crankshaft, comes back, goes over the top of your water pump pulley, and then goes down to the power steering pump. So like that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to top it off with coolant. I was going to do a pressure check, but this Pittsburgh kit here will not fit these radiator caps. It's got a plastic lip on it. Those are too small. None of them will fit it. This thing here that should fit it would probably work on a metal one. It looks like that clip's bending out, but these don't have a rolled lip, so when I get this up to about 8 pounds or so, this thing blows off. So basically, the Ford deal, what they had doing was, there's an extension tube you buy that extends up, and you plug your test gauge in the side of it, and your cap sets on top, and then you're supposed to pump it up, and at 13 pounds, this safety valve here should start opening up and allowing bubbles to come up in your coolant tank. If it goes over 13 pounds and this cap doesn't work, then you should replace it. As far as checking the radiators, if it's an aluminum one, you never put it in the same tank that you had a copper one in, because the solder can have corrosive flux left over on the radiators, and they can eat up the aluminum radiators. And also they would submerge these in a tank and pressure them up, just the radiator itself, up to 21 pounds, and look for bubbles, and that would be the maximum. So testing it on the truck would be 13, and the cap should operate so it'll come up and allow excess pressure to escape. And then you have a vacuum valve. When the truck cools off, that'll open and allow the radiator coolant to go back into here. And then you should only put your concentrate in there too, by the way. So 50-50 mix, and now we're just going to run it until I see the fluid circulating in here, and we'll continue. We'll just top that off to the bottom of this cap down here. It's about 1.5 inches from this. So anyway, that's what we'll do.